Darren McGarvey here, welcome to Common People. Before I start today, what I want to just do is let you know that we've actually been publishing over the last few weeks all of the Fringe shows featuring some brilliant guests, including Grant Morrison, Irvin Welsh, among others. And so if you fancy checking them out, go and check them. We haven't clipped them up for social media yet. We've all been mad busy. So the algorithm's been a bit ungenerous to us right now. So I just want to let you know, you can jump over, just scroll through, you'll find the shows. They'll be well illustrated with pictures of the faces of the people that I'll be talking to. They're not filmed, they are audio, but you can check them either here or you can check them on wherever you get your podcasts. Today I want to talk to you about a very dark development and a very dark topic, which sadly is the Department of Work and Pensions, right? So basically welfare in the UK. Now we know that over the last 20 years there have been moves to reform welfare because it's been recognised that the levels of welfare that are dispensed are not financially sustainable in the country, and most people would recognise that that is true on some level, and that it's definitely better for most people who are able to find stable, decent paid employment, and that's better for them, that's better for the economy, and that's better for social harmony. Unfortunately, what's happened is a process of welfare reform was undertaken in the face of a banking crisis that was caused by very rich people wanting to become even richer. And so austerity was shovelled on to the less wealthy people in this country, and those reforms took very different shapes and sizes, and the discourse became a bit radioactive as well, because in order to push through welfare reforms as harsh as the ones that we've seen over the last period, then you also have to really tap into a lot of prejudice about various types of poverty, various types of struggle, and various stereotypes about what people do with their lives when they're not working, why they're not working, who's more deserving and who is undeserving. So opinion polls regularly show that there's a lot more support for benefits for pensioners than there is for single mothers. You read into that what you will. And politicians understand this. It's all very focus grouped. It's all very strategic in terms of how they decide, how they're going to create the tier system of who's the deserving and who's the undeserving, so that they can make very, very paltry savings and trying to eliminate benefit fraud in the face of massive, multi tens of billions of fraud in which actual former government employees or members of the House of Lords are actually implicated, allegedly. But setting that aside, one of the developments that was reported recently was that the Department of Work and Pensions could soon begin tracking the spending of people who are on benefits. Okay, now why should this ring an alarm bell? It should ring an alarm bell first and foremost because it's a very mean-spirited approach, and really what it's assuming is a number of things. It's assuming that people who are on benefits are very bad with their money. It's assuming that on some level people who are on benefits might have income that is undeclared, and so vast resource and a very resource scarce period in time is going to be deployed possibly to surveil people who are suspected of this sort of stuff. But here is the thing that should worry some of you, and that is that any of you who have ever been in receipt of benefits will know already that there is a compliance system, and there is a penalty system, and there is a sanctions regime, and that these things all interact with each other in order to create a sense of anxiety, a sense of shame, a sense of fear in anybody who would go to the welfare state for support, whether legitimately or whether disingenuously. Because it's believed that if you can create the air around a system that it is so difficult to deal with and so opaque and thus hard to hold to account when you have legitimately been wronged, then what you will do is you will create a sufficient disincentive for people to ask for help because they'll think it's too difficult. And nowhere is this best modelled than in the Department of Work and Pensions appeals system, where most benefit claims in the beginning, particularly for disability, are refused and then granted once welfare rights officers get involved and appeal. Now, what does that show you? It shows you that there is a strategy to deny benefits that it's later proven a person is legally entitled to. That's a massive waste of everyone's time. That's a massive waste of everyone's resources. And that has contributed substantially to the around 130,000 people who have died throughout the process of engaging with the benefit system since austerity began. But the darkest thing, and I'm going to be talking about a sensitive topic, so anybody who is currently experiencing gender-based violence or abuse in any form in a domestic scenario, I just want to let you know that I'm going to be talking a little bit about that because I am aware that many people who are brave enough to flee a violent relationship, a violent man, and thus increase the risk of them being violently attacked themselves as retribution or worse, murdered. The first place that they might have to go for some financial support is the welfare state. And unfortunately, what they will find there often are strategies which mirror the abuse that they have just fled. And these include coercion. So this might include being forced to take a job, or you'll have your benefits cut. You might be a single mother. Your kids might still be at school. There might only be certain hours that you can work. Department of Work and Pensions, they don't give a shit about that a lot of the time. And so this is a form of coercion, which people who have fled an abusive relationship will already be very familiar with. Then there's the aggression. This comes in the form of the correspondence that you are sent from the Department of Work and Pensions. It's very sternly written language, capitalised in some cases, that's very, very clear that you are a suspect in the criminal trial of welfare dependency. And so people come to dread a brown letter coming through the door, and they might actually procrastinate from dealing with correspondence as a result of how how emotionally triggering that it can be. And I can say that as someone who dealt with the DWP a long time ago, just as this sanctions regime was coming into play. So we've got coercion, we've got aggression. These are two cornerstones of an abusive dynamic. Then you've got the overbearing surveillance. This is what we're talking about. Now, traditionally, the overbearing surveillance might be you have to fill in a form, you have to declare every bit of income, you have to let them know if you're going to go and volunteer at a food bank. This Department of Work and Pensions, they want to know every little detail of your life. Women who I have interviewed as part of my research into this topic have declared to me that they have even been asked intimate details of their relationship. They have even been asked, who pays for your children, Mrs. Such and Such? And the woman will respond, I pay for my children and my partner who doesn't live with me contributes. No, the government pays for your children. So that's overbearing, that's aggressive, that's designed to elicit shame, that's designed to create a dynamic whereby a person submits to the unfair, unreasonable conditions of some institution or person who has more power in a dynamic. But the final thing is the financial intimidation. And these are the four aspects that I think really do echo a scenario of abuse. And it's very, very interesting because the majority of people who decide what the welfare system looks like are men. The majority of people who push through these policies are men. And there's very little insight into what the impact of this will be on women, particularly this group of women who are very, very vulnerable, very, very traumatised. And what that really reveals is the massive chasm, the massive distance between people who have power and people who are powerless, and the impacts that it can have. Let's not forget, and this is the point that I'll finish on today, that whole welfare reform that we're still seeing continuing to now, it was all based on a sham. Austerity was a sham. The financial crisis that preceded it was created by the same political class and private enterprises, which then oversaw these savage cuts to public services. Which have been linked, as I said, to more than 130,000 deaths since 2010. So the explanation that this occurred because politicians are evil doesn't actually satisfy me, because that would imply competence. And I think there's no evidence to assume competence on the part of a current political class. So the rather banal truth is, in my opinion, that the massive social, economic and cultural distance between people in government and those on the sharp end of inequality can't be bridged by a few photo calls in Easter House, hanging around with the poor people saying you understand what they're going through. And it's become so vast that even when some politicians have acted with the intention to improve people's lives or make the system fairer, they have instead immiserated them or pushed them over the cliff's edge. But it's the hypocrisy of all of this that should anger people. The blatant double standards of a political class which has for the longest time enjoyed a parallel benefit system which not only distributes public money to them far more generously in the form of subsidies, expenses and other entitlements, but also where the rules in place around that are nowhere near as punitive. So when people say something that sounds rather cliche, like it's one rule for them and it's one rule for us, they're absolutely fucking right. Trust your instincts, you're bang on the money. Don't let this happen. DWP, a lot of good people working there, but everybody in there knows the deal. They know what it's about. It's a twisted Stanford experiment that's about frightening vulnerable people, denying them support and help that they're legally entitled to, all based on creating a mean-spirited discourse that's very, very, very volatile and fertile to prejudice as a justification to say that these people, they don't deserve our help. They're lazy. The situations that they got in through their own choice. If you're sitting there and you're saying that about women who've experienced gender-based violence, then you're an absolute fuckhead. Take it easy. I'll catch you soon. Like and subscribe. Or don't. Whatever. Fuck it. Catch you after.